All right. So we are going over the homework, which was the you guys were supposed to write down the urgent or important environmental issues or concepts that we had. So I'm going to write it on. I'm going to write some of the ideas that we had on here, so everybody can see them, including people who are watching the video. Okay. So let's just go around, and everybody is going to give me at least one. Oh, everybody's going to give me at least one, and then after everybody gives at least one, then we'll go around and because some of you, I'm assuming you'll have some of them that'll be the same. So, all right, Lennon, you can start. Go ahead. Okay. All right. Um. All right, Clancy. Okay. Holly. Okay. Uh. Okay. Hold on. I'll get to you. Tony. Say again. Radiation. Okay. 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 Molly. Okay. Brooke. Huh? Coaching. Okay. So we've gotten at least one from everybody. What are some of the other ones that people have? Pollution in general. Okay. Or so we can just put okay. Climate change. Climate change. What's that? Okay. So um, thank you. So mass production. Okay. Anybody else have any other? Don't you have them written down? Oh, okay. Okay. Natural resource use. Population. Human population. Is that what you were talking about, Brooke, with people? Human population. Okay. So any others that you guys had that you feel like are pretty big that aren't up here yet? Yeah. Okay. So energy use and efficiency. Yep. Anything else? Yeah. Yep. That's all right. I know it's hard to see because I got them all. Okay. So, um, this this homework assignment or activity was sort of twofold. One was to get you guys just to think about stuff that you personally think are issues, especially considering the fact that you being the younger generation, um, these are things that in your eyes or your mind are going to be stuff that you're going to have to deal with in your future. If we're not already dealing with them, then they will for sure be something um, that you'll have to deal with in the future. So part of it's that, and then the other part of it is to sort of get an idea of what are some of the challenges and what are some of the things and what are some of the reasons that we need to I don't know if the word protect is right, but like sort of like protect or manage our environments and the environment and around us and things like that. So uh, I think probably if we were to look at this list, it's probably pretty it's a pretty good list. I'd say to me, the ones that are probably the biggest that you guys are going to have to deal with, or we're going to have to deal with as a global community, are going to be the climate change. Um, and I mean, there's so much that's linked to climate change, but um, energy use and efficiency is linked to that. Uh, and then if we talk about like a lot of these, like air pollution or pollution in general, these all kind of link back to, or they have an impact on climate change, either affected by it or are a cause or of some of the things that are going on with climate change. Uh, but so a lot of it's linked, and then you're going to see some other ones in here like human population, natural resource use, mass production. Um, a lot of those things that are also kind of linked to natural resource use and our use of the environment, and some of these other ones are secondarily linked to those as well. So you're going to see some of that as well in there. Um, so this leads into the discussion of why do we need to care about the natural environment around us? So, like, why should we care about it? When future generations have to grow up in it. Okay, that's along the line of what you're going to say too. Okay, so for future generations, um, which is a good idea, a good reason. I would also make the argument that at the point in time where we are now, we're almost to the point where it's not really future generations. It's us, yeah, like our lifetime. Like this is like a freight train coming down the track, and we can see the headlight. And I don't know how far in the future it is, but I'm pretty much guarantee you it's going to happen within. It's already happening to an extent, so it's going to happen within our lifetime. So what's that? Oh, the train, the train thing. Yeah. Okay, so we're this is not something that is like, oh, this is going to be hundreds and hundreds of years in the future. This is happening now, and it is your future, and yeah, it's your kids' future, but it's our future too. So now let's take it a little bit further. Um, Trying to think of how to word this, but what? So this is some of the stuff that are urgent or important issues that you guys have identified, right? But what is it about it that like? Why should we care about you know natural resource use or energy. I mean, yeah, for our future and the future generations, but like, what is it about these things that make them important to us? Okay, natural resources, we use that stuff every day. Yeah, yeah, like yeah, exactly. If we run out of stuff that we need, it's going to create more and more issues and problems. So it leads into this idea of, um, if you think about it, we're pretty removed from a lot of the stuff that we use from our environment, like through our manufacturing processes and all this stuff. But in reality, everything that we need to live is provided by the quote unquote environment somehow. Okay, whether it's our food, whether it's clothing, whether it's materials for housing, whether it's um, energy for anything from transportation to heating to cooking, like everything that we need to live and survive and thrive is provided at some point from something in our environment, right? So it's it is something we need to take care of because that provides the stuff that we need to live and will continue to need to live. So that's really what comes down to it. If you look at the very base of the issue, is that it's not about like I think sometimes people think, oh, it's like, these like people that are tree huggers or the save the whale people or whatever, just like, oh, do it because it's the right thing to do. Like, no, it's not. We're not just doing it because, oh, it's the right thing to do. Like, not that that's not a noble concept, but the idea is like, no, this is more visceral. It's more like it's more survival. It's about our lives and our surviving, what we need to survive, and making sure that not only do we have that for this week, but that we can continue to have that. So when people talk about uh, caring for the environment and stuff like that, I think sometimes it gets this bad rap about like, oh well, the granola tree huggers, or like that kind of thing. Like, no, it like caring and taking care of the environment is about our use of it and our ability to be able to continue to use it. So, for example, some of the most environmentally aware people typically are people who hunt and fish. And a lot of times people don't think of people that are hunters as being like environmentally responsible, but many people that hunt or fish are, simply for the fact of they appreciate. And then when I say appreciate, I don't mean like, oh, I appreciate you. It's kind of like they understand and have the knowledge of how the environments work, and if they want to do things that they like to do, and they want to continue doing that, they have to do it in a way that's responsible. Okay, you don't just fish and pull every single fish out and take all of them. There's catch limits and all this kind of stuff because you want to be able to continue to do that, and you have to do it in a way that the ecosystem, that the lake can replenish itself, that the fish population can stay up. Okay, the hunters, there's bag limits and seasons and stuff like that in order to maintain the environment so they can continue to use it and continue to hunt and get benefit from it. And that's really the idea behind this. Okay. All right. So, all right, let's take this idea now. And if you don't have your books, that's fine. You can follow along up on the board here. Okay. So, we are going to talk about Easter Island. So, I'm assuming you guys at some point have all seen the Easter Island stuff with the stone heads, right? Okay. If that's where you hear it from. Um, so let me actually pull up something here. Um, Um, all right. So Easter Island. That'd be a question. How do people get there? Okay. So Easter Island is. Oh, oh, did I get? Gosh darn it! I must have canceled it. Okay. So if you look, you can see where Easter Island is in comparison to other things. It is way out in the middle of nowhere. Okay. Yeah, I mean it is actually it is very similar to Hawaii. Like Hawaii is somewhere up here. There. Um yeah, Hawaii is bigger, actually considerably bigger. Um so Easter Island is a very tiny island out in the middle of nowhere in the South Pacific Ocean. Okay. The Let me switch back here. Hold on. Okay. The size of Easter Island is 65 square miles, which which yeah, it that like 65 square miles. Like some people think like, oh, that's pretty big, but in reality, if you take the square root of 65, that would literally be basically a square, like an area that was 8 miles by 8 miles, a little more than that. That's So if you think about that, like that's not a very big area at all. Okay. They were saying you could literally, I think somewhere in there they said you could literally like walk around the island um in a day. So yes. Yeah, there were people that lived there. So um they in 1722 there were some Dutch ships that found a previously uncharted island, Easter Island, in the South Pacific. They they found the island to be inhabited by Polynesians who were living primitively. So, excuse me. It says, we originally, from a further distance, have considered the Easter Island as sandy. The reason for that is that we counted as sand the withered grass, hay, or other scorched and birch vegetation because its wasted appearance and could give no other impression, excuse me, impression than of a singular poverty and barrenness. So when they got there, it looked like basically a poverty-stricken, barren, almost desert-like area. So then they go back and talk about the past of Easter Island. The original inhabitants of Easter Island were Polynesians who arrived on the island as part of a deliberate colonization mission sometime around 1200 AD. So around 1200 AD, and I'm going to get a piece of paper and kind of draw this out a little bit here, hopefully. So timeline wise, around 1200 AD, the first um, they're called Rapa Nui, the Easter Islanders arrived. Okay, around 1200 AD. So it says that the island was abundantly forested, a wide variety of trees, including palms, conifers. Those are like pine trees, conifers are, and sandalwood. As the population grew and flourished, they cut trees for agriculture, for structural materials, and to move the huge stone heads from the quarries where they were shaped to the sites where they would be erected. Okay. Um, so it talks on, but it says by 1600, all the trees were gone. So I'm trying to find in here. Okay, sorry, I got to move the camera for a second so I can find the Okay, it says a population that had once numbered 10 to 20,000 was down to a few thousand at the time of its discovery by the Dutch. So, on the timeline, if we're doing a timeline here, this is not going to be to scale, it's just generic. So 1200 to 1600. 1600 AD was um, was all trees were gone. Okay, and it says a population that had once numbered 10 to 20,000 was down to a few thousand by the time of the discovery by the Dutch. So the Dutch arrived in 1722. So 1722, Dutch arrive, and the population numbers, a different color here. So if we do population, so the population at 1200 was basically around zero. And at 1722, they said a few thousand. So let's say 2000. Now it says at some point there had been 10 to 20,000 people living in that. So let's just say an average 15,000. So if we imagine that basically from 1200, 1600, all the trees were gone. So that's probably when things are declining. So let's say about halfway through here. So somewhere around 1400, about 1400, you're talking a population of somewhere, we're just estimating because we're just literally doing an average 10 to 20,000. So we're going to say 15,000. Okay. So what happened? If there was a population of 15,000, but when the Dutch arrived, it was down to 2,000, what happened? Some of it was disease. Okay. So it talks about, it says they were using their resources, right? The trees, cutting them down for to make agricultural sites, for structural materials, to move the heads. They used all the trees. Without plant roots, the cleared land failed to hold water. So when the trees were gone, the land couldn't hold water. Like water would just kind of wash out, and the soil washed into the sea. The eroded soil baked hard and dry after rains, offering little support for agriculture. As the forest was depleted and soil and water resources were degraded, the work necessary for existence became harder and harder. The gap between the ruling religious elite and secular warrior workers widened, apparently becoming intolerable. Sometime during the 17th century, there was a revolt of the workers, and in the Great War that ensued, virtually the entire ruling religious class was killed. So, did that make stuff better? No, the situation worsened. Anarchy broke out among the workers, who splintered into groups and continued to fight among themselves. Starvation and disease became epidemic. Without any trees, no one could escape the island by boat. A population that had once numbered 10 to 20,000 was down to a few thousand at the time of its discovery by the Dutch. So, in the 17th century, sometime in here, during the 17th century, there was a revolt, right? So, sometime between 1600 and the 1722, there was uh, a revolt or a civil war, whatever you want to say. Okay. And death and disease. So think about this. 15,000 people at one point, and they were down to 2,000. That is, that's 13% of the population are left. So if this was 100% of the population, like the height, by the time the Dutch arrived, basically a little over 300 years later, they were down to 13% of the population that they had once been at. And again, these are just generic numbers, but like you get the idea. Okay, here at the high school, we're basically close to 600 people. That would be like 522 people dying. That'd be 78 people left. Okay, that's a big deal. That's like a lot of people, right? Then the Dutch arrived, right? So things probably got better. Well, not so much. The Easter Islanders, who called themselves the Rapa Nui, suffered from contact with the civilized world. In the 19th century, they were visited repeatedly by whalers who infected the islanders with venereal diseases, STDs. So now we're in the 19th century. So between 1722 and 1900. So in here, um, there were STDs brought in, and slave trade. They were Peruvian slavers enslaved people from the island and took, it says, over 2,000 captive islanders captive for the South American slave trade. Now it's over time, so like it wasn't like they took all of them, but took a lot of them. Eventually, smallpox came to the island. So at some point in here, there was also smallpox. Okay. It says by 1877, so oops, I guess I can make this 1877. Erasable pen, yeah. Yeah. By 1877, there were only 111 of the Rapa Nui, the Easter Islanders left. 111 from the original total is less than a percent. It's 0.74% left. So if we were talking about here at the school, that would be out of 600-ish people, that'd be about 4.5 people. So between 4 and 5 people left. Okay. The chances that two of those people or any of those people that would be in here are very slim. Okay. Um, so one of the big questions is why? Why did this happen? Like, well, we know the reason why here. We've got those written in, right? Like they did that, like they used this, but like, why didn't they stop it? You're on an island so small, you can literally walk around it in a day. You have to know what you have there. So they're not dumb people. I mean, they had a very advanced civilization. So when stuff started getting bad, why didn't they stop? Didn't have self control. Okay, what? Mass panic. Well, yeah, but they didn't use everything like immediately. No, no, no. But even before that, I mean, yeah, that hurt even more. But like even before that, they used all the trees before anybody else got there, and there was a revolt in the Civil War before the Dutch even arrived. Learn how to ration type. Okay. So so this sort of the lesson of Easter Island. Okay, and I'm gonna hand out the note from this now. The lessons from Easter Island sort of go along the lines of the ideas that we have to realize where we're at, and that it's not necessarily a means of being like intelligent or advanced or whatever. I think sometimes people think that, oh, as a society, or as a as a species, as a human race now, we're too intelligent to do that. We're too like we know better. Like we're not idiots. We can see when all the resources are being used up or being used too much, and we'll stop before we get to that point. But Easter Island is a great example of that not happening. And uh, part of so some of the things that happened, and some of the lessons from this is that there is the potential to overuse critical resources having severe consequences for human existence. They didn't overuse the resources and cause this because they were dumb. It happened because of things and stuff in like how human nature works. So, and you guys have actually seen this to some extent on much smaller scales, but uh, what happened? What happened at the beginning of COVID when, um, when like, yeah, no, like literally, like toilet paper and stuff like that. Yeah, all that stuff was gone, and it's because it like did everybody need all that? No, but when things start becoming scarce, it's what's called the scarcity mindset. People don't think about other people. What they start to revert to is more of your evolutionary um, signals, which is we got to make sure that I got to make sure that I'm safe and that the people directly related to me safe, and basically screw everybody else. So people start stockpiling, and people start trying to use. They don't try to ration and try to you know do things what we would call quote unquote intelligently. It's more of a lockdown, like, okay, get as much as you can because things are becoming scarce. Yeah. Because it might be scarce, right? Yeah. And so what happens is people think like, oh, we're kind of above that, but no, we're really not above that behavior. And that's part of what happened to Easter Island. Easter Island is a great example because it's sort of like this, uh, like a mini model for what could happen. Because they didn't have anywhere else to go, they were stuck on the island. So all they had was the stuff on the island. The Earth is kind of like an island. Like we don't have anywhere to go outside of the Earth, at least not as of right now, and nowhere in the near future. Okay, so yeah, but I mean, think of all the work and effort that would have to go into to trying that. Like, yeah. Um. So okay. So let me real quick here. So the lessons from Easter Island. Um. We need to use our natural resources in a way that we will continue to have access to them because that's what we need to survive. Um, the potential does exist to overuse critical resources having severe consequences just because of the scarcity, our scarcity mindset and our intrinsically our survival instincts do not lead to necessarily using less when stuff starts to become scarce. The earth has, and this is kind of related to, the earth has a finite or limited amount of resources, and overpopulation or overuse could cause them to be used faster than they are replaced. You mean as or you guys? Really? That's interesting. Um, but it is like they're yeah, it was from the like scarcity and the worry about food. It really was. I mean, people were stockpiling and storing stuff. And then this last one is also true, and and I think we're seeing some of this now. Not it it sort of expresses itself in our society more as a political thing, but we still are seeing this. It's like when the gap between the haves and the have nots in a society widens, it creates instability and can have devastating consequences for both the society and the environment. We are seeing that sort of that seeing that in kind of an expression of wealth, but like the gap they've talked about it a lot about the quote unquote middle class disappearing, and that's the gap between the people that have and the people that don't and the amounts, and that's the real thing. And when you get that really big gap, it creates societal unrest, uh, and lots of societal problems, and it can have problems for both the society and the environment as well, and the usage of it and stuff like that. Okay, questions?